Hornets exit day interviews, they're over. They're done with. The season has finally come to an end. What is Jeff Peterson's future vision for this team? LaMelo Ball, he wants to stay. And yeah, we still have a mock draft for you. That's all today, Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. You also have a Substack to subscribe to. It's everyhornetsboxscore.com. There you can see all of Doug's thoughts on the comments we heard from the Hornets yesterday. Doug Branson and David Walker, both taking care of everyhornetsboxscore.com. Doug also hosting Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. We appreciate you making us your first listen. Again, we're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That does include YouTube. And there's also a newsletter, a new newsletter, Locked On Hornets Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now. LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. All sorts of comments. The exit day interviews, they last forever. It actually ended somewhat soonish yesterday because they started earlier than what they usually start. So Jeff Peterson kicked things off at 9 o'clock. Actually showed up on time, too. So shout out to the EVP, Jeff Peterson, showing up on time. Charles Lee was after Jeff, and then we got rolling into some of the player exit interviews. Yusuf Nurkic, Taj Gibson kicking things off. Then it was Miles, LaMelo in the middle of the day, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams. We got through all of it, baby. We've got all the content. We got a bunch of sound that we can play, but more importantly, we can analyze. And let's just start with the guy that started things off yesterday, the Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations, Jeff Peterson. He's the head decision maker. Kind of, I guess, with the owners still dabbling in some personnel decisions. I have to think. He's supposed to be. He's supposed to be the head decision maker. He's supposed to be the shot caller. So one question that was asked in a different way quite a few times, and one statement that Jeff Peterson had for the people that I knew would make Doug cringe. I know his sustainability spidey senses were tingling when he heard that word from old Jeff Pete. He said it, Doug. Let's hear Jeff Peterson's comment on his vision for the future of this organization.
Look, I think the goal is always to be a consistent winner. We want to, put a sustainable product on the floor. That's been my goal since I interviewed with the job, and fortunately it's in line with ownership and Charles's vision as well. Again, look, no one's happy that we won 19 games this year. No one in the locker room, no one in the front office, the coaching staff, medical performance. That's not fun, quite frankly. So in terms of timeline, obviously the season just ended. Charles and I are going to have some long conversations and really reevaluate and reflect on exactly what this team needs. But look, the goal next year is to win, to compete for the playoffs, and we're going to do everything in our power to do it. Again, I will double down on we're not going to expedite anything. We're not going to skip steps. I think there's plenty of examples that we've seen around the league and other sports teams and franchises that when you try to skip steps and go too fast, that's when big mistakes end up happening. Ones that really, really hard to crawl out of that hole. So we're going to be patient, diligent, opportunistic, very strategic in terms of how we build it, because as I've said before, I don't have any interest in coming here for a year, making the playoffs, and then we jeopardize our future or compromise our flexibility moving forward, and then we're out of the playoffs for another 3 or 4 years. So
we've heard that a lot. Mitch Kupchak said that all the time when he was the GM of the Charlotte Hornets, all the time. This is it's one of the second or third times that we've heard it from Jeff Peterson. Doug, you hear that comment, you think what?
I think it all sounds really good. It all sounds great on a vision board or in a slide deck or in an interview situation. Sustainability, being patient, being diligent, being opportunistic, being strategic. But it all comes flying into a brick wall of this Hornets team has not made the playoffs in nearly a decade. Fans are tired. Fans are checked out. And what they really want, more than patience, more than diligence, even more, honestly, even more than like, an amazing 100% strategy, is they want some risk taking. They want some, hey, we're going to do whatever it takes to put a winner on the floor. I think that's the kind of attitude they want expressed, and I don't think that's what I heard. What I heard was Jeff Peterson wanting to have it both ways. The goal is to win, but we're not going to skip steps. The goal is to make the playoffs, but we don't want to make the playoffs one year and compromise the future. I would say, hey, Jeff, talk to some fans. They'd be fine making the playoffs one year, even if it meant not making the playoffs for the next 2 years, because they haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. It's crazy. If you tried to assign a win-loss record to his statements, Walker, I could justify, and I would go back to the beginning of this regular season when we talked to him, preseason, and I would say the same thing. You could hear his statements and a lot of statements from this team, and if you wanted to assign a win-loss record to it, you could justify anything from 20-62 to 62-20. I just don't know what this team wants out of next season, and I don't think I'm going to have an answer to that until we get through this offseason.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, I do think I think I know what they want. I think that what they've wanted this whole time is a complete rebuild, even if they're not doing it by selling the core players out to other teams for trade.
Oh, the core
for
four?
draft.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that a time or two?
Hey, I flirted with it. I can't fully say that I am absolved of any responsibility because I asked the question. I didn't call them the core four, but I did say the players, and then I mentioned those four by name to see if Jeff Peterson did believe in those guys still. And so here's something for me, man. As much as it's frustrating as a Hornets fan to see that this is a team that has not made the playoffs in what is going to be a decade, I feel pretty confident that this is going to be a playoff list team in 10 years' time. I think that's going to happen. They're going to meet that threshold. Even if that is extremely frustrating and disappointing, as a podcast host that does this every single weekday and then goes and does it again on his other weekday show on WFNZ, a partner of the Charlotte Hornets, as frustrating as it is, they're operating on their own timeline, which makes perfect sense to me. It's understandable. And as much as I hate it, it's understandable. I think it's important to note that every trade they've made, none of those trades have made them better, or none of those trades were made with the intent to make them better in present day. We can go down the list. They trade Terry Rozier. This is either Schlotkin ownership group or Schlotkin plus Jeff Peterson once he's finally named EVP. Terry Rozier for picks. PJ Washington for a pick. Daquan Jeffries probably helped the team, but they didn't make that trade with that idea. They just wanted the second round picks. Nick Richards for Okogie and picks. Nurk, because it came from a dumpster fire organization, and they got a first round pick. And the trade that they made, the big one, was Mark Williams. It was rescinded, but guess what? They traded Mark Williams without the intent to get better that day. They traded for Dalton Knecht because they liked him in the past draft class. Kind of a first-round pick, not getting any minutes with the Lakers that are a playoff team, and an unprotected first. All of those trades, we all agreed with. I think we liked pretty much every single one of those trades when it was made real time, and there's not anything blasphemous about it now when you go and evaluate it hindsight. This is a Jeff Peterson. This is a team, an ownership group that has told you, we're not trying to win right now. And that continues, whether he tells you it with his actions or his statements during exit day interviews.
Well, the problem is he's not really telling you that explicitly with his words when he says, we want to make the playoffs next year. I mean, I guess everyone.
Yeah, I think that was a throw in. Like this is, but I understand. You're right. Like and words matter.
Yeah. There should be a clarity of that vision. And the problem is they're trying to sell something that they're not going to deliver on. I think that's a frustrating thing. Here's what worries me, because I think you're right. Like if you look at all of those trades within the context of what they were doing, they make a lot of sense. And again, it makes a lot of sense to say we're not going to skip steps. We're not going to do what Phoenix did, which is try to skip a bunch of steps and have an owner that's just going to open the checkbook and say, go forth and do, even if it doesn't make sense, do whatever it takes. And look what it has wrought in Phoenix. Like there's an extreme that you don't want to go to on the other end. But when he elaborated on what skip steps include, it includes overpaying for a free agent or making a trade that jeopardizes your future or make a risky trade. Mm-hmm. In my mind, like again, all that sounds good in principle, but it severely limits your team building options as a smaller market because it puts almost all or exclusively the focus on nailing the draft. which, by the way, like if you're a franchise with an ownership group that doesn't want to pay a lot of money for a roster, a great way to do that would be to build through the draft. But like it shows a level to me of risk aversion that worries me and should worry a fan starved for wins and who's trying to make a decision on whether they should renew their season tickets or not. Look, maybe Jeff Peterson is Sam Presti 2.0 when it comes to wheeling and dealing and nailing the draft. But if he's not, and he's not interested in pursuing an all of the above approach that we've seen work in Indiana, we've seen work in, to an extent that I think Hornets fans would be satisfied with. We're seeing it work right now in Detroit. If they're not interested in pursuing that, then, I feel for Hornets fans who are going to have to endure more of this. All I hope is that his actions, and you sort of hinted at this as well, I hope his actions prove more vigilant than his words, and he's playing all of his cards close to his chest.
I think that is the case. I think when this is the problem, though, right? Like, this is when Jeff Peterson, in the middle of all of that, says we're going to compete for the playoffs. It doesn't mean they're going to get there. I think what they mean is we're going to do everything we can with the pieces that we have to play good enough basketball, and it looks like we're competing for the playoffs. But then even afterwards, later on in the presser, he said, I'm not going to tell you that we're going to make the playoffs next year. He didn't guarantee a playoff spot. He didn't say anything like that, which is also everything we need to know. And it's the first year of Jeff Peterson. I don't know if I've seen anything from his words or his actions that tell you that he's risk averse, and a lot of it is because we just don't have a lot of time with Jeff. We don't have anything. Like, we were actually thrilled with ownership coming in and picking a damn lane. We were thrilled with that. Hey, you're moving off of Terry Rozier? This is the way. You're moving off of PJ Washington? This is the way. That was a year and a half ago. They keep telling us that this was a year of evaluation, and I think that's probably true. They didn't evaluate everything they wanted to because of all the injuries, and that really threw a wrench in their plans. I think that's when you start to become concerned, is if they allow that to hinder them from making some of the moves. And we just don't know the answer to that. That's the problem. And so hopefully
totally
that doesn't
agree.
happen.
You nailed it.
Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Thank you for telling me I nailed it. I appreciate that. Coming up next, we'll talk a little bit more about LaMelo Ball's comments, how he wants to stay in Charlotte, that it doesn't necessarily mean better things if he goes to a bigger market, and then we'll give you a mock draft in the last segment as well. All still to come. LOH. This episode is brought to you by Hungry Root. Spring is here. Life is busier than ever. Between work, family, and everything in between, who has time for grocery shopping and meal prep? That's why you can use Hungry Root. It makes eating healthy, and it gives you delicious meals. It makes it simple and stress-free. Hungry Root is like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist wrapped into one. They can take care of grocery shopping and meal planning, offering personalized recommendations based on your taste and health goals. The meals come in 15 minutes or less. They come together in 15 minutes or less. They give you more time for workouts, family, hobbies, all sorts of stuff. And with their high-quality, nutritious food, you can stick to your gut-friendly, high-protein diet without spending hours planning. Take advantage of this exclusive deal. Get 40% off your first box, plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA for 40% off and a lifetime free item. More Locked On Hornets ahead. LaMelo Ball stepped up to the table. See, I kept saying podium because that's what I'm used to, but it was a table that they were speaking at during Hornets Exit Day interviews. So
Not a
anyways,
lectern.
throw out the podium. Bring in the table. There you go. So they stepped up to the table, or they sat down. I'm getting all my words mixed up. So LaMelo, he stepped up on the stage. That's how we'll call it. And he talked a little bit about how the season went. I think it was Rod, Doug, that asked him the question about, of course, LaMelo stands saying he needs to move to a bigger market, and they're out there. He's got to get out of Charlotte. He's got to get to L.A. He's got to get to a bigger market. Or even, it's not even the LaMelo stands, honestly. It's some of these other media members that have played in the NBA before. I think Chandler Parsons comes to mind. Yeah, Chandler Parsons is a guy. He hosts the pod with Michelle Beadle and Lou Williams. Lou Williams might have also backed that from Chandler or vice versa. Either way, it's a talking point. And LaMelo said, I'm kind of cool here in Charlotte. I like it in Charlotte. Doug, I know you have the exact quote. Read it for the people.
He said, just being here, I loved it. I mean, the fans is amazing. The living situation has been amazing. Everything's been solid. So all that, you need to leave and this and that. I mean, when you build something, it's never just going to pop off and be the best thing. So you got to stay there, work it out, do what you're going to do and see what happens. If you're going to try to make it work, you know what I'm saying? Unquote.
I do know what you're saying. And I think I don't know if you think this, Doug. Is that the clearest answer we've ever gotten from LaMelo on his desire to stay in Charlotte or not? Like I think we've heard him talk about it before, how much he likes it here. But you could always throw that into of course he's going to say something like that. Of course he's going to say that he likes the city that he plays in. Maybe not, but you could throw it off like that. I don't think so, but that's what people would say. Well, what else is he going to say? He's playing there, he's under contract, yada, yada, whatever, right? But I think with this answer, I think LaMelo is telling you, yeah, you can tell me to go to a bigger market. That's fine. But just because I go to a different organization, playing in a bigger city where you have a lot more people living there, it doesn't mean that things are immediately going to pop off. Sometimes it takes time. I actually think that was one of the more clearer answers that we've ever had from LaMelo. And again, this is LaMelo. So sometimes you got to put the puzzle pieces together and figure out exactly what he's saying. But I don't think you really had to do that here. Anytime anybody has speculated about LaMelo not liking it in Charlotte, that's all it's been, speculation. We've never heard ever LaMelo want to be out of the Queen City, except for maybe sometimes when he's been frustrated with the team. Like maybe there was a GQ article like 3-4 years ago, something like that, about wanting a center to play with. And this was pre-Mark. I think this was like around, I don't know, Mason Plumlee days, something like that. But to me, that was my takeaway. And it continues to be speculation if people talk about LaMelo not liking it in Charlotte.
Yeah, you have to wonder if in an alternate universe in which he wasn't struck down by injury after injury after injury, if he had followed up his all-star season with another all-star season and the Hornets had continued to lose at the level that they were losing at, if LaMelo wouldn't have been a little bit more frustrated and saying, hey, get me out of here. I think LaMelo understands the context of the losing that Charlotte has done, and for now, he's okay with that. You know, I think like for all of his unique style, his, fashion sense, what the image that you see of him on social media, LaMelo has always come across to me as a little bit of a shy kid in the sense that I'm sure he's like super extroverted around his friends, but like, and he seems like silly and goofy and loves to play around, like in the clips that you see of him playing golf with the team and, some of the look behinds that we've got on social media, but he's always come off to me as a little bit of, particularly in front of the media, as a little bit of an introvert. And so this doesn't surprise me that he would want to play in a low-key vibes environment like Charlotte, both from the perspective of like, you can walk around as a star in this city and not be bothered, but also you're not going to be bothered by the media. Like the media doesn't press this guy very much. And so like on the one hand, I think it's super admirable anytime a star player says, hey, I love this city. I want to stick with it. I want to be loyal, even when, and honestly, if you look at the Mark situation, sometimes that can bite you. You can say, well, I want to be loyal to this city and this team and stick it out. And then the team say, nah, we're good. We don't. And they could do that to LaMelo this offseason. On the other hand, this place with its low expectations that we just talked about in the first segment, or unclear expectations, no one's sitting at that table, that podium, that lectern and saying, we better make the playoffs next season or heads are going to roll. That's the kind of thing that happens in LA and in New York and in places where you make the playoffs or major changes are going to happen. That's not the deal here. And so like if you were the kind of person that just wanted to hoop without the pressure, you didn't have the desire to win championships or win playoff series. Theoretically, if you were that kind of person, this would be the perfect place to hoop it up. So, I think the Hornets would benefit from adding alongside LaMelo or in place of LaMelo a star, a mercurial star, someone who demanded winning, demanded excellence, or else I'm going to show up at your door, your office door, Jeff, and demand that I want out of here if you don't deliver me a team worthy of winning. Like, I think they would benefit from that player, again, alongside LaMelo or in place of him.
Yeah, I think a couple things. It is a great way to put LaMelo in a place where he just can't win. if we want him to stay in Charlotte and we want stars to stay in Charlotte, and then we flip that and we say, I want a star that wants out of Charlotte because it puts pressure on the organization to win, it's a great way to put LaMelo, a star of the Hornets, in a place where he quite literally can't win, because one way he's out of Charlotte and the other way he's in Charlotte, and we don't like it because we want him to want out of Charlotte. The other thing is, it all goes back to the beginning of your comment when you said you wonder if LaMelo actually played well, didn't get injured, would he be doing this? It's because LaMelo doesn't have any leverage to do the stuff that you were just talking about. He's got $40 million and he's got a whole bunch of injuries racked up, and then he even tailed off post All-Star break. Even if he wanted to, I wonder if he'd have any leverage to stand on. When we talk about LaMelo being out of Charlotte, we don't talk about it from LaMelo forcing himself out. We're discussing it because we wonder if the Hornets are ready to move on. Because of the 20, 30, and then 40 game season the last 3 years, that's how we discuss it. So I think you're right. When you bring up at the beginning of your comment, you wonder how things might have changed with LaMelo had he stayed healthy and actually put together an all-star season on top of the one that he got his second year, an all-NBA season where he's healthy enough, and the Hornets put enough talent around him. I wonder how many things would have changed based on LaMelo's feelings.
I don't want let me clarify. I don't want a star that actually wants out. I want a star like Giannis who demands excellence, who says this is not good enough, and I'm going to do everything in my power to fix it, which I think LaMelo absolutely believes and wants to. I don't question his desire to be a great player, and honestly, like everything that I've heard, he's super competitive. But there is like super competitive on an individual level, and even like I want to help my team. And then there's like that crazy, insane, whatever that thing is, that Giannis and Jimmy Butler and LeBron James and all of your superstars in this league. There's this level that you get to where it's like, no, it's not that I just want to win. I want to dominate. I want to kill. I want teammates that are killers. And that's how you win championships. Giannis demands things from, and again, Giannis has been healthy and he's won and he's done things that LaMelo hasn't done, but he demands things from the Milwaukee Bucks that says like, do this or I want to stay. I want to be part of your small market. I'm a small market kind of dude. But if you don't provide me with winning, I'm going to go play somewhere. Maybe it's another small market. Maybe it's the Spurs, but I'm going to go play somewhere where they're invested in making this team a playoff winner. That's what I want.
Do you think the Hornets would do anything because of that request or demand? Not request, because you're saying he should demand it. Do you think they do anything?
See, I don't know the answer to that question because we have not had that player. Kemba Walker wasn't really that player. And again, I'm not. No. This is all people are gonna comment and be like, you hate Kemba Walker and you hate LaMelo Ball. No, I'm just telling you that this franchise, from a media perspective, the fans are putting pressure on by like not showing up to Spectrum Center, and they'll continue to do that, by the way, if they continue to lose. Right. But the players haven't, and I don't think the media has done a good enough job of saying, hey, you've done a lot of losing. Like, where's the accountability, right? And if the players aren't going to do it and the media's not going to do it, there's just no pressure on this organization to put a winner on the floor sooner rather than later. That's all I'm saying.
No, we'll see. And I think with the LaMelo stuff, I think we do have an answer. Whether it was the old regime or the new regime. The old one, Mitch Kupchak told you at the you talk about somebody that was wide open and honest. Mitch Kupchak was wide open and honest. And when he was asked about getting any influence from LaMelo whatsoever, he was like, no, we wouldn't welcome that. I mean, I didn't ask LaMelo about anything we did. We're making our decisions by ourselves. We're not going to LaMelo, seeing if he's okay with this coaching hire. We're not going to LaMelo to see if he's okay with this trade. It's just not something that we're doing. I can't imagine a first-year GM who cares about his job security, who cares about trying to make this team as good as he possibly can. He doesn't even know if LaMelo's going to be on the team. That's what I wonder. So, yeah, that damn media. Anybody who was at the Spectrum Center yesterday and didn't put pressure on this team, shame on you. Whoever was at Spectrum Center, shame on you.
Feet need to be held to fire. That's what I'm saying. And again, everything that you just said is totally fair. That LaMelo has not played in a lot of games, and he has not led this team to the playoffs. And I'm not saying that as like that's his fault. I'm just saying those things didn't happen, and those things need to happen if, as a star player, you want to put pressure on an organization and be taken seriously, okay? But you also are now making the most money on the franchise. That does give you a little bit of leverage to say, hey, I'm the top moneymaker here. Here's what I would like because I would like to win. Here's what I think we need. I do think he has a little bit of that leverage, and I don't know if he's using it or not. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I'm just saying that's what the Hornets need. They need a little bit, a star that is not satisfied with the status quo.
I don't know if he's satisfied either. We'll see what happens this offseason. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Mock draft season. Will they get that star? Will Cooper come in and demand that this team be better immediately upon stepping foot in the Spectrum Center? We'll talk about it coming up next. LOH. This episode is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about it. When was that last time you had a service emergency? If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications all through an app on your phone or computer. I love that you don't have to carry 2 phones, but with Open Phone, you can manage business calls and text from one app. And whether you're at your desk or on the go, you can still take advantage of Open Phone. Your favorite feature might be the shared inbox. Your team can just jump into any conversation without missing a beat. Plus, there's an AI call transcript with summaries that save you time on follow-ups, and it ensures you never lose track of customer interaction. Open Phone is offering listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE. openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you're switching from another service, Open Phone will even port your existing numbers over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Mock draft, baby. Day 17 of 61. We're getting closer and closer to what we hope will be the #1 overall pick. We're getting closer and closer to the day that we find out if we have the #1 overall pick, May 12th. So just inside a month, May 12th is when the NBA draft lottery will be held. Brandon Miller sitting down with that famous show, Weston Walker, yesterday, Doug. We've had conversations about the lottery being rigged. Brandon said, West asked him a Cooper Flag question, and Brandon said something to the tune of when Cooper Flag is in Charlotte.
Whoa. Keep your third eye open, folks.
If Brandon is the representative for the team at the lottery, and you can hear him on Weston Walker say when Cooper Flag is a Hornet, I'm just saying, man, it might be rigged, and I would love it. What's today's mock draft all about?
Today's mock draft is brought to you by NBADraftRoom.com. They updated their mock draft on 4/9/2025, so it's somewhat fresh. And before we get to, I'll just say the Hornets in the 3rd slot are taking Ace Bailey. 6'9", 200, Rutgers. You know the pros. The pros are extreme athlete, can really get his shot off from anywhere, and shows some defensive upside too, because he just has the physical tools. He needs to get stronger like every player in this draft, but he's got the physical tools that you would want out of a potential super wing. And the cons, which are that he takes shots that are ridiculous and has, extremely questionable decision-making at times, inefficient, inconsistent. I would say this about Ace Bailey, and I don't know if you agree with this, Walker. If there were any time to bring in an Ace Bailey to this organization, it would be now, where you've got veterans and young players going to the table, the podium, the lectern, and saying, Charles Lee is all about discipline. And when he says stuff, we do it. Like there is a respect level from coach to player and a listening and I think just a vision right now that would accept Ace Bailey and make Ace Bailey a better player, if Ace Bailey wanted to be a better player.
Yeah, I mean, I think that vision would make sense. I think Ace Bailey being drafted and this being the right time would make some sense. It actually goes into a theme, I think, that we saw yesterday, which maybe we can save for tomorrow. Charles Lee, I thought, had some interesting comments. I thought he was really detailed in his player breakdowns on LaMelo and Mark. Got some really good stuff from Charles, and so I appreciate him being so open when taking some of those questions from media. But the Ace Bailey stuff, yeah, we can talk about it more tomorrow, but I think it would make some sense in terms of bringing somebody in that if he takes the coaching, that he would be a really good player.
If you're going to do it, that's what I'm saying. Like and let's just say VJ Edgecombe goes 3 and the Hornets are in the 4th slot. Like, I don't know that I would necessarily advocate going after some guys that I like, and Trey Johnson or Con Knipple or Jockey Jonas. Like, there are players that I like, but I like them because I think they're going to be like solid, okay players. You know, the floor is going to be a little bit higher, maybe the ceiling a little bit lower. You know, in the fourth slot, I'd have a tough time advocating for the Hornets not to go after somebody that has the gifts, the potential gifts that Ace Bailey has. Let me run this draft lottery simulator real quick.
Well, you do that real quickly. Let me make one point on that just real quick, because I wanted to get to Jeff Peterson's comment on Tijan Salan. And he said we drafted him because of his intangibles. This team has a type. It all goes back to Hornets DNA. It's all about the intangibles. And if they're going to draft anybody in the top 5, they're going to have to fit that mold. And so, you know who fits that mold? If you just start to comb over the players that make sense in that way. Comb over. It'd be Cooper Flagg. I think it'd be Dylan Harper. VJ Edgecombe. And I guess I don't know about Ace Bailey. I just don't know enough about his demeanor. But the VJ Edgecombe, the things you hear about him are dog, defensive mindset. If he shoots, then he's going to be a complete player. That's the type of mold that I think the Hornets want to draft, and it's why they drafted Tijan Salan. So,
well, and you're totally right. And for Ace Bailey, so if he did want to get drafted 3rd overall by the Charlotte Hornets, if that's where they ended up landing, I think the meeting with the team would be so vital. He would need to come in there and say, like, there's going to be all of these key words that he's going to have to hit, I think, for the Hornets to say, all right, this guy's about it. Because the tough part for both Harper and Ace Bailey is that Rutgers didn't do anything last season. They didn't win a lot of games. They didn't go to the tournament. So you're already going to have to sort of jump over that barrier of like, why didn't that happen when you and Dylan Harper were running the team? So he's going to have the right answers. And if he doesn't, then yeah, I mean, I could definitely see him slipping beyond the Hornets at 3. And a lot of other mock drafters see that as well. I mean, I've seen a lot of VJ Edgecombe going to the Hornets at 3. The Hornets wouldn't have to worry about that decision, though, in this latest draft lottery simulation, because they move up to the number 2 pick, where I think you and I are in alignment that Dylan Harper would be the guy to take there. Toronto moves up 6 slots to the number 1 pick. New Orleans moves up 1 slot too. Utah and Washington, they get hosed, moving down 4 pick. Hey, how about Washington? Bub Carrington ruining their opportunity to have the best odds. They were 1 game away, and they got a 1-point victory. Bub Carrington ruining the tank.
That's fantastic for him. I'm going to pose a scenario that we haven't talked about. What about VJ Edgecombe being the 2nd pick in this draft over Dylan Harper? Would the Hornets fall in love with VJ so much so because of that dogged mindset, that defender that gets in your shorts and doesn't let you get anywhere out there on the perimeter, that has all the athleticism and whose 3-point shot really came on in the second half? Is there enough there where VJ Edgecombe might impress this team enough in the interview process to where he jumps up not only to 3 over Ace Bailey, but is there a world where you would take VJ at number 2 after Cooper Flagg is off the board?
I hope not. Because I think intangibles are – look, I think intangibles are certainly important, but I think organizations can fall in love with that idea. And I think players have agents, and agents know teams. And when you go into an interview, if you go into a job interview now, dear listener, if you go into a job interview, what do? You research the company, you look for the keywords, you look for like what the company believes in, and then you put that in your resume. And you go into the interview, and if the company is all about integrity, then what do you say? You know what? I'm kind of all about integrity, right? Mm-hmm. These things can be manipulated. You can do your research. So you have to be careful. But for that reason, and also it's just tough it's really difficult, and everyone will tell you this. The people that like know basketball more intimately and know this process most intimately will tell you the hardest thing to judge on a player is not whether they can shoot or whether they can pass or whether they can drive or whether they can play defense. It's their mentality, it's their psychology. Do they have that it factor, that thing that's going to drive them through the tough early years into success? Do they have the daily improvement? You know, that's what the Hornets are looking for out of their current players. That's what everybody's looking for in the draft. And so, you know, I think you can fall in love with some of that idea and some of that talk and miss out on just pure talent. And that's what I think Dylan Harper has over VJ Edgecombe.
And again, all this character stuff, like I don't know any of these dudes. I haven't even seen any bad write-ups on any of these players. All I see is what people say about VJ and the style that he plays with, and it being something that fits exactly what the Hornets want, what they've told you they've wanted with every role player that they've acquired in the last year and a half, or every draft pick. KJ Simpson fits that mold. Tijan Salon fits that mold. Tijan was in a bad draft class last year. Tijan Salon wasn't even among like the top 10 most skilled. No, not even coming in. Top 15 most skilled. He might become that, but he wasn't that coming out of the draft. And so I just wonder, it's a question I asked probably a couple weeks ago, how much are you willing to sacrifice talent and ability for the right mindset? Because there's got to be some kind of balance. Mm-hmm. How much are you willing to sacrifice of that? Now, Dylan Harper also is like high IQ guy, gets in the paint, also can finish through some contact. And so that fits the mold as well. I don't think it would happen, but just an interesting enough question to me that we haven't talked about. If we're looking for a whole bunch of other ways to talk about the draft just a month out of the lottery, I think that was something that was worth exploring enough because of them saying they drafted Tijan off of intangibles, how much they like him. So anyways, all right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. We have a lot more audio to get to all throughout the week. I think we heard some interesting stuff from Mark Williams. The first time we've heard him, I think it's the first time we've heard him take questions because of the trade being rescinded. So we'll give you some comments from Mark, maybe more from LaMelo tomorrow. Charles Lee as well throughout the week. I thought he had a lot of good stuff to say. Seth Curry had some interesting stuff on Wes and Walker. Brandon Miller gave us an injury update, a pretty in-depth one about how it affects his shooting. He talked about it at the table, but also on Wes and Walker as well. So we have all the audio, and then maybe next week we start to get to some player shells. Like this is the good meaty part of the offseason, and then we'll get to silly season. It's coming, folks. Then we get to the games that we never finish until about 3 years later. That's Doug Branson. Go check out everyhornetsboxscore.com. Listen to Locked On NBA. Also listen to me, Walker Mail, WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.